Okay, so we all know Bad Bunny, right? He's absolutely massive, one of the biggest stars in the world. But what if that incredible success isn't exactly organic? Well, today we're digging into a theory from one source that claims there's a whole hidden story, a powerful one, behind his rise to the top. So what's the big idea? The central question here is pretty wild. Is Bad Bunny's fame something he earned through pure talent and fan love? Or is it something else entirely, something, carefully designed by some very powerful people operating in the shadows?
All right, so to really get our heads around this, we're going to unpack the argument step by step. First, this whole idea of him being a manufactured star. Then, how the media story around him is supposedly controlled. We'll look at the money trail the source claims to have found, what they see as a deeper cultural agenda, and finally, what it all says about the post-truth world we're living in.
Okay, first things first. Let's get right into the heart of it. The central claim that Bad Bunny's superstardom isn't earned, it's created, artificially.
So the theory basically says that Hollywood, or the powers that be, decided that Bad Bunny was going to be a superstar. And that's that. It's a concerted effort, they say, to make him a household name, whether you, the public, actually asked for it or not. The decision has been made, and now it's all about making it happen.
But what's the proof for all this? Well, the source points directly to his latest movie role. We're talking about a brand new film, a big one, called Puerto Rico. He's not just in it, he's the star. And get this, he's starring alongside heavy hitters like Edward Norton, Javier Bardem, and Viggo Mortensen. The argument is, this isn't just a lucky break. It's a calculated move to rocket him to the absolute top.
All right, moving on. The theory says this whole push isn't just about movie roles. It's also about carefully, and I mean carefully, controlling the story, the narrative that we all hear about him to make sure he can't fail.
And this leads us to a really key exhibit in their case: the Super Bowl halftime show. You see, the source claims there's a huge gap between the official story we were told and what actually happened. Officially, a massive success that cemented his global stardom. But the source claims that behind the scenes, the numbers told a totally different and much less successful story.
And they bring out a number, a big one. According to a service they just call SATV, the ratings for the halftime show were down 38%. A 38% drop from the year before. Now, this is presented as the real data, the truth that was supposedly kept from all of us.
And that leads to a pretty serious accusation. The source is basically saying they lied to us about the ratings. We're not allowed to talk about that. The claim is that there was a deliberate media cover-up, all to protect the massive investment in Bad Bunny's image as this unstoppable force. So if you look at the timeline the source puts together, it's meant to show a pattern. In the past, there was that canceled El Muerto Spider-Man movie. They see that as a failed first attempt. More recently, you had his smaller role in Bullet Train, another stepping stone. Then, the Super Bowl performance, which they frame as the big media moment. And looking to the future, this new Puerto Rico film is positioned as the final, massive push. For them, this isn't a career, it's a campaign.
Okay, so from there, the argument takes a big turn. It moves beyond just Hollywood and tries to follow what it calls the money trail. The question becomes, who are the alleged financial and, get this, political forces behind the whole operation?
And this is where things get really wide-ranging. The source starts connecting dots between Bad Bunny and some seriously powerful and, frankly, very different groups. They allege their ties to Commie money from Venezuela, specifically the Chavez dynasty. But then they also bring in names like Jay-Z and Abramovich. It's a pretty wild network, they're suggesting.
And this quote from the source really just lays it all out there. They say, Bad Bunny seems to have been put into the public sphere by Venezuela and by communist propaganda. So they're not just saying these forces supported him, they're saying they created him, that they put him out there for a specific reason.
Which of course leads to the billion-dollar question, why? Right? Why would all these supposedly powerful interests team up to make one guy a global megastar? Well, according to the source, it all comes down to a much deeper cultural agenda. And to get the why, we have to understand this term they use, the synthetic celebrity. The idea is simple. It's an artist whose fame isn't built on real, organic public support. Instead, it's manufactured. It's built by media and money. The source literally describes it as, all plastic, it's not real.
And here is the absolute core of their why. The argument is that Bad Bunny is being pushed to the forefront because he is, in their words, antithetical to what Western values and traditions have been.
Basically, he's being promoted because he represents a challenge to the old way of thinking.
The source even calls him a wolf in sheep's clothing. They argue that he's given this squeaky clean, family-friendly image, like at the Super Bowl, but that it's all a front to mask a very different agenda, one that's aimed squarely at young people.
And finally, the source zooms all the way out. They take this specific theory about one artist and use it to make a much, much bigger point about the world we live in today.
So in the end, they frame this entire thing as a perfect example of how our culture now operates in a very post-truth world where Neo-Marxism is presented in real time. So to them, Bad Bunny isn't just a singer. He's a symptom of a massive cultural shift.
And that really wraps up our look at this theory. It leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought, doesn't it? The source is basically asking, if celebrity can be manufactured on this kind of scale, what does that really tell us about media, about power, and about who's actually pulling the strings in our culture today?